Well, good morning, Ali. This is our live stream to talk about the business owner's dilemma. And Ali Nasser and Mark Leary, and we're here to talk about that. So, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Mark. Great to see you. Excited to be here. Let's do
What,
this.
what made you think to write a book about this business owner's dilemma, and what is it?
Okay, yeah, great question. So I've been advising and guiding entrepreneurs kind of on their life's work and planning their life's work for nearly 2 decades, probably 19 years now. And about 7 to 10 years ago, I had a series of engagements that completely changed the paradigm of the work that I was doing and changed the trajectory of the work that I was doing, and eventually led me to write this book, The Business Owner's Dilemma. And I had a few business owners that had all sold their company, or what I would call like reached the summit of their entrepreneurial journey. And they had sold their companies for pretty substantial sums, like 20 million, 100 million, even $500 million, like some substantial exits. And while they had total financial independence and freedom, many of them, in fact, the majority of them, were really struggling. They were struggling with the life after. They were struggling with their identity. They were struggling with big financial and life dilemmas that they were facing at that time. And this led, for many of them, to adverse consequences to their health, their personal relationships, their life happiness. And seeing this happen, and not seeing it happening with one or two people, but seeing it happen with the majority of these business owners, I made me hyper aware that wealth is a means and not an end. And if you don't have a clearly defined end or really an outcome that you want your wealth to accomplish, you're never going to be fulfilled, because there's no amount of money, whether it's $1 billion or $100 million, that's going to fill your cup. And the thought and the analogy that comes to mind, and I talk about this often, is a mountain climbing one, is that when you think about the question, what's the goal of climbing a mountain? Most would say, to get to the top,
Get to the
right?
top,
That's
right?
the goal. Well, in reality, the true goal of mountain climbing is to get to the top and then to get back down safely so you can appreciate, celebrate the success, in the journey. It may sound obvious that you want to get back down, but the reality is with mountain climbing accidents, 80% of the accidents don't happen on the way up. They happen on the way down, because we're so focused on reaching the summit, reaching our goal, we don't think about what happens after we hit that goal. And this is so true in the business owner community, that business owners work a lifetime, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I want my freedom and independence. I'm creating this, I'm creating that. And then they hit their goal and there's no plan for what comes next. And it can be overwhelming, devastating. So seeing the impact of the work that we did with business owners during this period, and how huge of a paradigm shift it was for them, the impact it made to their lives, their planning, their life's work, I was like, I want to democratize this framework. How do I spread this to the entire entrepreneurial community and take what I've learned doing this, what I've learned from these incredible business owners on their journey, and like put it all together in a way that can be shared with the business owner community and give a path to get more and get more impact from all this. So that was my reason behind writing this dilemma. Kind of that took me on a multi-year journey to today, where now I can actually share that message in a book or in a workshop or in a
Yeah, for
program.
sure. So I've heard you talk on the subject in various ways, and I've known you long enough to know that this is truly your passion, and the idea to write a book. So what's the experience of writing a book like, and especially what do you learn about yourself in the process when you endeavor to write a book about
That's a great question. And I don't know that I've ever been asked, what do you learn about yourself? So thank you for that. I think there's an incredible amount of self-discovery. There's a saying that we teach what we need the most.
it? Yeah.
And many writers are asked, did you write this book because you needed the book or you wanted to share this message? And I think for me, it was both.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I wanted, the message I wanted to convey, and I had clarity as to how to help people get to that place. But I was also struggling with a lot of aspects of this myself. So going through, if we discuss the dilemmas, it'll provide a little more framework around it. But I wanted to discover the final answers or the path to a lot of these things myself. So as I started to write the book, initially I'm thinking, okay, I can put this book out there. I've got everything together. I've done this for years. 6 months to a year, I can put this book out there. It took me
Okay.
almost 5.
5 years.
Almost
Wow.
5 years, yeah. And when you're running a business full time and you've got life and you've got COVID and you've got all these experiences that have happened in the last 5 years, things get delayed. But
Yeah.
I think the biggest reason it took so long is that there's certain people that write books and they want to put it out there just to use it as a business card or as a marketing piece, but they're not like truly trying to capture a message in a call it a
Yeah.
CD
Because they want to
particular.
have a book. I want to,
Yeah.
if you're a consultant, you're a thought leader, I want to have a book. Because if I have a book, I got something to, but if you're passionate about getting a message across, sounds like you run into some unexpected obstacles trying to get that message crystal clear and landed. What was that like?
So it started with, I put an outline together and then it turned into, I'm going to call it a 500 pages of content because I'm like, oh, I'm writing a book. I've got to put this in there and this in there and this and this. And then all your ideas as an entrepreneur go, how do I put this all in a book? No one's going to read your 500-page book and it's not organized and you have way too many thoughts and ideas. What really matters and what is the shortest amount of pages, the least you can have this book to convey this message in the most effective way to your target audience. And then that was skinny down and skinny down and skinny down. It ended up being about a 150-page book, bunch graphics. So you can read it. My goal was someone can take a domestic flight and read the book in that 3 hours. And now that's been accomplished. I've actually had a lot of people tell me, I read your whole book on the plane. It was great. So
I'm a slow reader.
Well,
I'm trying to do the math. Like I'm a slow reader. And how long were my flights? And my flights were only about an hour and a half. So I guess a match, it works. So I had to read it in 2.5 chunks to get it done.
Hey, I have a hard time reading a book in one sitting too. So, and the Audible will be coming soon. So
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything about that, but like one of the real obstacles to me was the fact that your book was made out of paper, and so I heard that it used to be that way, but from my world, when I say I read a book, I never actually mean read. I meant listen to.
I can totally appreciate that. There is no question there will be an Audible. It's not a question of it's not a matter of if, but when. And we'll have an Audible put out.
So I assume Matthew McConaughey's doing the voiceover for the reading.
No, not at all. I'm 100% planning to do it myself.
You're gonna do it yourself. Oh man, I'm
so
so excited.
Initially, I was 50-50 because I heard all these things about it, and then as I've talked to different audiences, I think it's been like 99% to 1 in favor of Ali. You need to speak through this book. Like no one's gonna capture this voice and the passion the way that you have it.
Yeah, man, for sure. So I've read hundreds of books online or audio or listened to hundreds of books. Mm-hmm. And to me, there are people who are such horrible communicators that somebody else needs to do it. But if it's a liability, otherwise it's so much better in the voice of the individual. And to me, that's part of what makes the Audible experience that much better than the paper version, because it's like we're having a conversation. Now, you don't seem to respond to my questions a lot, but I'm going to assume that you're just distracted. And
I love that. And that's just one more affirmation that I've got to do it Audible. Sure. And I think what we're going to add in as a bonus piece, because I'd love for the readers that read the book to also do the Audible, is adding in between chapters, kind of like a little mini podcast interview on the content.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you can free flow and discuss certain things, you can just dig deeper. And it's less mechanical than reading text. So I think that'll be a bonus bit of content that we'll have for the audience.
Yeah, that's great. And it's a little preview actually, because you and I are going to do a podcast as well that'll be published in a few weeks to really do that. So if this is getting your appetite whet, your interest peaked, that's what I was looking for. Then I think that the book is a great place to look, and then especially if you want to dig into those details, that's what my podcast is built around anyway. Digging into the depth and details of something you already know something about, and so getting into the nuances, and so you can unlock where you're stuck in concept. So I think it's a great companion. I mean, Gino Wickman's books have done that way, and I think having a podcast at the end is a great sort of appendix to kind of give you the color for the background. Right. I think sure. Ryan Holiday has the same thing. I think Ryan Holiday had like an interview with Tim Ferriss after a book, and it's really great to get all that extra content.
Yeah, it allows for the space and time to, as you say, chase the rabbit.
So how are you now getting the message out. You got the book out, it's in people's hands. Now what they say is once the book is published, that's when the work begins, right? So what is your plan, process, engagement, carrying it forward?
Sure. So the first thing is getting the book in the hands of the right people. And the right people, as simply as I can put it, if you're a business owner that has poured your heart and soul into building your business and you want a path to capture your life's work, this book is for you. And it's gonna provide guidance to business owners of all shapes and sizes, but the core message is your passion, your vision, your life, your wealth. How do you bring it all together and create a path to capture your success? So step one is getting it in the hands of the right business owners, and that has been through channels just like this. Having podcast interviews, doing live streams. I've done a ton of speeches for entrepreneur CEO groups. I did one last week for Vistage in Austin at their executive summit. Had one for EOS Worldwide. Unfortunately, I got COVID and missed the EOS conference.
Yes, you did. I was looking forward to seeing you there, and I was going to be front row, man.
I appreciate it, but I'm doing a special deal. I'm doing a makeup session.
Oh, really?
So yeah, and this is great because it's live. I can tell everyone about it. If you go to Ali Hates COVID, ALI, Ali Hates COVID, you won't forget it, AliHatesCovid.com. The event that I was going to do for EOS as part of their session at the conference, I think we had like 250, 300 people that would have been in that session. We're going to do a virtual one as a makeup. I think it's on May 11th, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, just hit AliHatesCovid.com. You can register there. And what I said is any of the community, and I know many of your listeners are EOS community people as well, come to the session. I'm going to send you a free copy of the book. So
awesome.
I haven't been doing the free book thing. It's always been a paid thing, but I'm like, let's do this. I felt horrible about missing the conference, but we're going to do a makeup session, and it's going to be great. And it'll help connect the dots for a business owner on their EOS journey and how the wealth integration system for entrepreneurs or the business owner's dilemma kind of dovetails into that to help them plan their life's work.
Awesome. And so many people listen to this and watch this live, but many more listen to it and watch it afterwards. So afterward, you and I can go back and put some comments in there and put the links in there, and so people will be able to find and check the stuff out. So that'll be good and easy for people.
To be great. And there's all the info on the book is at my personal website, alinasser.com, and then of course the book's on Amazon and all that. And then for those that are interested in the workshop program or going deeper, like I like this, I want to go deeper. I want to get education and content around these 3 dilemmas, around these 6 components, and bring the pieces together. We have a whole workshop program that we've built out at Wise. So that's wiseglobalnetwork.com.
Yeah, I realize it. I need to create like a visual here for the book, and the book's right there. Let me grab the book.
All right. Mark's got a nice little backdrop there in his office.
I didn't hear a word because my headphones are out. I almost grabbed a copy of Patrick Lencioni's book, The Motive, and so I was going to be promoting Patrick Lencioni for a second, but that's
Patrick Lencioni is great. I've got one of his books on my shelf. He's man, I love his stuff, and hearing him live, cool guy. I mean, that was authentic self on the screen.
Oh man, he's amazing. But this is your book. This is your time. So Business Owner's Dilemma. So kind of summarizing what's in the book, there's a system, right? The system is called WISE. And so why somebody would want this, having read this, what I took away from this, I'll be blunt, right? So bluntly, I'm an entrepreneur, and this is financial and wealth planning. And this is a lot of stuff that is really hard, subject-wise, for me to want to know about. The stuff I want to outsource. I want to say, Ali, you handle it and tell me what I need to know. And so I really had to wrestle with sort of like lifetime tax strategy. That does not sound like something I want to know about. Like, all right, this got to be important. Ali wouldn't have put it in there if it wasn't important. So I keep reading it. And the outcome of this is like, well, there's a system and there's a way to do this. And we got some questions we're going to walk you through. So why is that system important? And, walk me through, like, if you're going to read this book, what are you going to get?
Sure. So I'll start at the simplest space, which is where every business owner is, which is dealing with certain dilemmas. So there's 3 critical dilemmas that every business owner is going to face on their journey. The first one is a reinvestment dilemma. I've been successful in my company. I've made great profits. Do I put money back in my business? Do I start another company? Do I buy private equity, stock market, real estate? Do I put money in bonds or cash? Do I invest in crypto? Like, what do I do with my dollars of profit? Where do I reinvest? Big dilemma that many business owners are facing at all sizes, whether they've had a $100 million exit or they just made their first 100,000 of profit. The second dilemma is a legacy dilemma. What is this all for? I've built this wealth, sometimes more than I may ever need. What is this for? Is this for my children? Is this for charity? Is this for my ego? Is this for fun? Will my wealth be a source of empowerment for my children or a source of entitlement for my children?
Yeah.
So this is a big topic on a lot of business owners' minds. And then the third dilemma is the exit dilemma. Should I continue to grow my company? Should I sell it? Do I sell it to my executive team? Do I sell it to a third-party buyer? Do I leave it for my son or daughter? If I sell my company, will I have just sold my purpose, or will I now have the freedom to pursue my purpose, right? Like, what's my best exit strategy? I have found that these three dilemmas occupy so much real estate in the minds of an entrepreneur. When it comes to planning their life's work, they're constantly thinking around these dilemmas. And the interesting thing is, for many of them, they think about this year over year over year without having a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge. The reason it's so challenging, Mark, is one that you just mentioned. A lot of entrepreneurs don't have an appetite for the financial wealth related things. It's like, I want to just focus on my business. I want to grow that. Planning, like that's not fun.
I know what I want the end to look like. What's the first step in the process? Oh, yuck, forget it.
Yeah. It's a turnoff, right?
Yeah.
The other reason it's so challenging is it is both a wealth decision and a life decision. Every entrepreneur, if you ask them, are you emotionally connected to your business? 100% of entrepreneurs are going to go, yeah. Sometimes positive, sometimes negatively, but they are emotionally connected to their company. When it comes to your spouse and your opinions about what you should do with your children or your life's work or your company, your exit, there's an emotional component. So you've got your spouse here, you've got your family here, you've got your business partner here, you've got your employees in your business there, you've got your wealth. It's a very complex emotional machine. It is not mechanical. It is not internal, like executing an internal process. It is extremely emotional. And when you're addressing wealth and life decisions as an entrepreneur, what happens when you're faced with something that's complex and something that's emotional, you just avoid it. And you say, just like you said, I don't want to do this. This isn't important to me. Do it later. The tragic thing that happens is if you're one of these successful business owners that hit a high level of wealth, a high level of business revenue outcome, if you don't create a plan to capture your life's work, you're going to be sitting there like a sitting duck, if you will, for a catalyst for a big issue to happen. A lawsuit happens, an increase in income, a sale of your company, a death, and you don't have planning in order. You haven't thought through those issues. You've got big problems. And the ultimate heartbreak for me is watching business owners that had $100 million exit, and wake up and they're disappointed, they're not fulfilled, and they're like, I spent a lifetime working for freedom and independence, and I don't feel like I have it. And it's because for many of them, they didn't prioritize planning or thinking or addressing these things for years. And the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The entrepreneurs that I can talk to earlier on help shape their mindsets, help them think about their journey more intentionally. If nothing else, help them see what's coming down the road ahead. The outcome that they have is tremendously different. Yeah. It's expectations, it's planning, it's strategy. And at the end of the day, there's a huge value add. Like going through that process, there's usually hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of money saved. So that's a big incentive.
Well, I pick on lifetime tax strategy because it's the one that had the biggest contrast for me. It had the least curb appeal. Like lifetime tax strategy. Like it's too many syllables and it involves the word tax, and I don't want to talk about this. I don't know what it is. But to your point, so like, okay, well, what does that mean? And so I'm reading through the book, and it's like, well, what outcomes do you want to have in 10 years? And what are the symptoms by not having that strategy? And it's like, well, you get to the end of any given year and you're having a conversation with your tax advisor, and they're saying, do you want to put this in a retirement plan? Do you want to say this is cash? Do you want to put this in, in pre-tax, post-tax? And it's like every year it's sort of like, what do you want to do right now? And every year it's sort of like the flavor of the month. And it's like everything is sort of like, I don't know. And I always make a decision. I personally always make a decision based on kind of like, I don't know, it feels like we're going to do this. I might buy a house this year. I might need more cash. I might not. So let's put this, is retirement, a retirement account. Like, when is retirement? You're telling me I'm going to save 30 cents on the dollar by putting in a retirement account, but when is retirement? And so I never feel like every year I come back, it's like, stick to the plan, Mark. Like, there's no freaking plan. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm taking the last advice of the last person, and I still don't understand what I'm doing. So I had to sort of admit that, like, I think a lifetime track strategy would help me.
So, yeah, you've literally just described what traditional planning looks like.
Yeah,
and the complete need for why a system should exist.
Yeah.
You know, you're an EOS implementer, and you understand the value, and I'm sure your audience understands the value of when you have a clear vision, all decisions become easier.
Yeah.
If you're crystal clear on your vision, your issues list goes from 50 things to 20 things, because the vision drives what it is that you want. There are countless tax strategies that an entrepreneur can take advantage of. Literally, people have written books this thick on all the different things you can do. If you go, let me look at all the strategies and pick which one I want, you will be in analysis paralysis for years.
Yeah. Or random. Like, if you're either in analysis paralysis and stuck, or doing something different every time you go at it.
And there's not going to be consistency or continuity. Your team is not going to feel like they have a clear path.
Right.
Your tax and legal and financial advisors aren't going to have a direction. But if you start with vision and you say, this is the vision I want for the 6 components of WISE, right? And you create a clear map, and you got to work through with an entrepreneur to figure that out. It's like someone comes in and goes, here's my end vision, exactly what I want to do. Most don't need that. They need to be asked the questions. They need to turn goals into refined goals, get clear about what they want. But once there's clarity about what they want, then you can look at the universe of things and say, what fits that vision? And then you go from a 5,000 tax strategies in a book to 4 or 5. And those 4 or 5 can really fit the entrepreneur's goals and vision. And what ends up happening is let's just say an entrepreneur builds a $50 million estate, and they would have otherwise been subject to $25 million of tax. You could do intentional planning, and as opposed to being exposed to 25 million of tax, maybe you're only exposed to 5. Now that planning process was worth $20 million to you, your estate. $20 million, right? That's motivating for an entrepreneur, right? But most entrepreneurs don't do that intentional planning, and they burn so much more than they need to, because all their tax planning is April 15th, April 15th, April 15th. And as I love working with CPAs, they provide an incredible function for tax preparation. Most CPAs are not strategic planners.
Yeah.
They're spreadsheet lovers, they're tax preparers, and they're going, give me your information, I'm going to maximize your return. Versus, let me look at your plan over the next 5, 10, 15, your lifetime.
Yeah.
And what are the strategies and levers we can pull to mitigate your lifetime tax? That's the strategic aspect.
So I want to make sure we give due credit to what a great CPA is. CPAs are not business advisors generally. Some can, but like, if you look at the one off the shelf, a great CPA is somebody who is absolutely geeking out on the current tax law. It's very technical. To have absolute intimacy with what levers do you have access to this year right now. That is not the kind of headspace that allows you to say, what are we doing for the next 20 years? They're not compatible. You want that. There's nothing wrong with what I just said, but it is not compatible with 30-year thinking and that kind of thing. It's very technical.
Absolutely. And usually their schedules are stacked. Like, get this return on, this return on, this return on. They love, I think some of them really want to do that with their clients, but their business isn't built that way. And what business owners constantly tell them, the biggest frustrations they say is, how do I get what I want? And Ali, I know what I want. I want a proactive team that looks at my financial, my tax, my legal, and says, what are the strategic opportunities? What do I position? Do it, pull me into a meeting, come to me with new concepts and ideas that can help me maximize my value. Instead, I'm going, I did the process. Was there something else I could be doing? What about this? What about that? And everything's reactive. How do I get that proactive strategy? That's why I cover all that in the book. That's why I lay out the framework for how advisor teams need to work together. I mean, I've done this with advisor teams for almost 20 years. I've taught other advisory firms on how to execute this and have collaboration between tax and legal advisors. And now I'm teaching entrepreneurs through workshops. Here's how, whether you want to do it yourself, here's how to do it,
Yeah.
and integrate your team. Or if you're the guy that goes, I don't really want to know how the watch works, kind of like how you started today's call. I want to know what time it is. Well, great. I can get you directly connected with our team or another team that can execute this for you. And you can watch the process happen versus have to learn it yourself. And some entrepreneurs want to know what time it is. Some entrepreneurs want to know how the watch works. There's two paths for them, depending on what they want.
So one thing I would want to really highlight here is that the distinction between this conversation and this book and every other financial type of, I say every, but probably pretty close to every other conversation, this isn't, the reason you wrote this is not to give more tips and tricks, more make me look smart. Like I'm super, look at this trick shot. There's a system here. Like why have a system? Like in Sandler, if you're familiar with Sandler, one of the first questions is why have a system? And their answer is I think to have a consistent outcome, to know how to measure, but also why do you even have the question? It's, if you read the book, you get a couple chapters in. Well, there's a couple of handfuls of things to get good at here, and by a couple, I mean it's really not. It's like six handfuls of things. And if you got two hands, there's going to be four hands empty or four hands of stuff somewhere. It's a little too much to keep in most people's heads. So the power of a system is, it's not so complicated, but it's more than most people who don't have a full-time job around it are going to be able to just kind of keep in their head. So use the system to make sure you don't skip any critical pieces. So that's the, so talk to the system. How did you come up with simplifying with this particular system? Whatever you want to say about the system.
Yeah. No, I'll start with my why, and I'll kind of take a piece from the book on the system. So years ago, I read the book, The E-Myth. Right? I think many entrepreneurs have read this, and I'll paraphrase a part of it. But what he says in there is systems permit ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary results. Yeah. However, without the use of a system, even extraordinary people find it difficult to produce ordinary results predictably. Excuse me. So
it's not COVID, is it?
No.
I don't want to catch it from you, man.
No, I don't think it's transmittable through computers. But
I don't know, man. They don't know. They don't know. The science is still early. The science is still early. It could be.
So systems are critical. And the thing is, with an entrepreneur, I can tell you that there can be an entrepreneur that makes this much, that has a system to plan their wealth. And there's an entrepreneur that might make this much that doesn't have a system. And it's quite possible that over 10, 20 years, the one that actually made less ends up having way more wealth, life outcomes, life experience outcomes that they want because they have a system to follow. So within this system, again, the nickname for it's WISE, which stands for the Wealth Integration System for Entrepreneurs. And what it is, there's 6 components led by your vision. And everything within the spectrum of entrepreneurial wealth and life planning fits into one of these 6 components. And when you go through and you have a system that says, here are the different areas, and you need to have a plan for each area, and you've got a list of issues and opportunities for your total planning, and a list of goals for your total planning, and a way for your tax, legal, financial advisors, your CFO, your spouse to all integrate through one set of goals and objectives and see it all through one lens, it is enormously impactful to your planning. Because most of the time, and again, I've done this for years, most of the time I bring together their attorney, the CPA, the team for a business owner, I get this comment at the table. Man, this is the first, like I've worked with this business owner for 20 years. This is the first time I've ever seen this level of information about their goals, their balance sheet. They're like, I didn't know, had I known this information, I would have done things so differently. And it's one of those meetings where it's a paradigm shift. And when you have that centralized data, when you have a clear vision, you have everybody looking at the same thing the same way, it is incredible the outcome that comes from that. But in order to do that, you got to have a system. So when I started creating this system, I said to myself, one of the goals here is I want the least amount of steps to the best possible outcome.
Least amount of steps, best possible outcome.
Yeah. Now that doesn't mean
it's still not 2 steps. It's several steps.
No. There's stages and steps. I mean, hey, Mark, again, I love making EOS analogies because you and I can speak that language well. But if someone comes in and goes, okay, I'm going to give you a day, Mark. I want you to get all this traction EOS stuff. It's awesome. Give me a day. Let's get this together. Let's get our VTR, our rocks, or everything put together. Let's figure it out, and I'll give a full day to you. You're going to laugh at them.
Yeah.
You can't do all your visioning, all your rock planning, all your integration, all your team stuff in a day, right? It's a process, and it's an ongoing process. But the outcome of it could be exponentially impactful to your business or your wealth, right? Wise is a similar deal. It's not going to happen in a day. You can build one part of it in a day, but what you really need is a way, how do I get a system that can get me on a track? And then as change happens, as my business doubles in value, as my goals change, as my spouse has new thoughts or ideas that they want to bring to the table, it can adapt and change over time. Tax law is going to change, marketplace is going to change. But if you don't have a pathway to capture that, man, you're missing out. Awesome. And if you're spending 50, 60, 70 hours a week building a company and you're not spending some level of quality time planning it, I mean, just think about that for a second.
For sure. Well, look, man, we're out of time, so we got to end this and get you on your way, and then we got some other stuff to do later. But what do you want to leave people with? We can put some comments in after this, but next steps, thoughts for people if they want to continue the conversation. What do you want to tell them?
Well, I mean, for sure, check out the book, The Business Owner's Dilemma. It's on Amazon. I think that's a great first step. For those that are like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to read a book immediately, but I want more info. This event that we're doing, I'd love for your attendees to join. Just go to Ali Hates COVID, and you can sign up for that event that we'll do on just here coming up in a couple of weeks. But hit the website Wise Global Network if you're looking for more clarity. The number one thing you can do is take the assessment. It's a free assessment, and it basically will outline your total wealth planning, life planning picture, the return on life experience that you're getting, kind of help you get clear about where you are right now. And that's at Wise Global Network /assessment. Or if you just hit wiseglobalnetwork.com, there'll be a button there, take the assessment. That's going to give you your first point of clarity. Whether you're reading the book or not reading the book, that's going to be a great option for getting increased clarity.
Awesome, man. Cool. Thanks for the time. We got some action items there, and we'll put some notes after the fact. But I'm grateful for the time, and I'm interested in talking more in depth. And in our podcast, we'll go into the details and nuances and talk through some things like that. Awesome. Thanks, man. I'm gonna shut this down, and we'll talk very soon, brother.
Sounds good. This was fun. See you, Mark.